Hi, everybody. So I'm John from TUC, which is the UK's Federation for Trade Unions. And I want to talk a bit about how flexible work, trends towards flexible work aren't really working at the moment. And part of that is due to the issues of power in the work relations that the systems around flexible work are bringing in and privileging the way that those systems were designed. So we're doing okay in the UK after the crash on employment levels. We've got a lot more people in work than we had earlier, but compared to other countries, we've got a huge number of those new jobs have become self-employed, casualised jobs rather than more regular employment patterns that we used to see. We reckon about 1 in 10 workers are currently on 0 hours, short hours, temporary agency work, or in bogus self-employment. Now, that's a kind of hollowing out of our labour market. We've got some good jobs at the top, and we've got worse conditions for those who are increasingly in whole industries, so retail, hospitality, social care, distribution, and a lot of younger workers especially going into those industries affected. Companies are passing on the risks of the business onto their workers. So at a company level, you can aggregate risks, but when it gets down to an individual level, it makes lives pretty chaotic. So we've been doing loads of research with younger workers over the last year, and here are a couple of things that they've told us in quotes. Some people get pay deducted for time off due to emergencies. Others keep it. It's inconsistent, and we've been told not to discuss it with each other. In retail, it's long tiring hours for absolute minimum wage. Shift patterns are hard. You get 1 day early shift, 1 day late. That makes it really hard to do things out of work or to organise the childcare. Notice of our shift changes can even be an hour before the shift. You get allocated extra shifts when you don't want them, and you don't get them when you do need them. So there's several problems for workers in getting together to change anything about that. Management's also hollowing out and becoming less personal. So decisions that result in sanctions for workers can be presented as kind of machine processes. Shift rostering, automated, helps companies run just-in-time operations, but that doesn't take workers' needs into account in the way the systems are designed. If your workplace is a platform, there isn't really a forum to suggest ways to change things. And APIs don't always make the most personable bosses. So the increasing atomization of the workforce also means that staff lose trust in each other, and they become competitors for shift supervisors of favouritism, and they end up trusting management more than they trust their co-workers. People don't relate to each other as much as they used to anymore. Think of kind of Uber drivers when you see each other as competitive black cars passing on the app, rather than being a space where they're getting together and finding out each other's lives. So having an individual approach to solving your problems at work means that a lot of workers have already got an experience of disappointment in asking the HR for something and not getting it. And there's a real sense that that's the way the work is. Or they become disheartened and they think there's no point in trying to change anything. Over recent years, that's led to a culture of really low expectations of work, especially among younger workers who don't know other ways of doing this. And there's a real sense just that's the way that work is. Especially added to that, people in agency work find themselves feeling replaceable. They don't expect to stay long in jobs that are outsourced and can only last a few months, so they're not trying to change anything about it. Benedict's boss, Matthew Taylor, recently did a big review on changing patterns of work for the government, and he found that flexibility was valued by loads of businesses and valued by a lot of the workers who take part in flexible working systems. But increasingly, it's going too far, and there should be ways to encourage more what he called genuine two-way flexibility. And there's two approaches to doing that. Voluntary solutions with employers improving their systems, or workers strengthening their own bargaining power together. It's fairly obvious self-interest that we believe unions are the safest way for people to effect change together, because they give people consultation rights and protections from reprisals. They've got infrastructure to make things sustainable, and collective power is the only way to workers can reset the balance of power and then keep it that way. So unions have had wins in campaigning on employers like Sports Direct and Uber recently, but they found it really hard to organise casualised workers in industries. And currently, Amongst private sector under 30s, union membership is now a shameful 6%. So some starters for 10 as areas of this. Is there a way to get workers' user needs taken into account in management system designs, as well as employer needs? Can we make work allocation more transparent, so people can see what's going on? It's not only head office that know. Can we help atomised shift workers find each other and link together better? Can we help workers sort out shift problems amongst themselves? Can we fix what Kate was saying earlier about humanitarian organisations being somewhat behind the curve? I previously worked in humanitarian organisations, and trade unionism is behind the curve. Is there anything that we just found out there is a curve? Is there anything that we can do to change the ways that workers organise to help them get to this point? So thank you for your consideration.